What would you do if the woman you married had never revealed her face, and the entire world believed she was hiding something shameful? If your marriage did not begin with love, but with a pact of power, would you choose to resist or to submit? And if, in the end, the one most underestimated turned out to be the one holding a secret capable of bringing down your entire empire, would you still dare to face the truth? He had just signed a contract worth $4.3 million when his entire life was decided by a single, concise sentence. The woman he was about to marry would walk into this house with her face completely covered, and he would have no right to refuse. Nathan Cole stood motionless before the floor-to-ceiling glass of his office, the city of San Francisco stretching below like an indifferent painting. The glow of the nightlights reflected off the dark gray suit he was wearing, the deep blue shirt beneath it making his face look even colder. At 32, he was used to controlling everything, from the numbers flickering across his screens to the fate of an entire corporation. But tonight, for the first time, he realized something was slipping beyond his grasp. An arranged marriage. A woman who had never shown her face. A veil concealing the truth. And the feeling of being forced into a corner where his power no longer carried any weight. The family dinner took place in the expansive dining room of the seaside estate. Crystal chandeliers poured light onto a long table built to seat 20, yet only 3 chairs were occupied. Nathan sat at the head of the table, back straight, both hands resting on the polished wood. Across from him were his parents. Richard Cole, in an ivory white shirt, his expression calm like still water before a storm. Margaret Cole, in a sapphire blue dress, her eyes carefully tracking every movement her son made. "This is not happening," Nathan broke the silence, his voice low but tightly restrained with anger. "I will not marry someone I have never met, someone who hides her face like a shameful secret." Richard took a slow sip of wine and set the glass down. "You are not being asked. This is not a proposal. This is a decision." Nathan let out a short laugh, devoid of any humor. "A decision made behind my back. How convenient. A marriage like this is no different from a business transaction." Margaret leaned forward slightly. "Do not turn this into something personal. The Moore family is a strategic partner. This marriage is a marriage of convenience, and you know how necessary it is." Nathan clenched his jaw. "Then what is she?" "A veiled bride story to hide a truth you do not want to tell." "What is she hiding beneath that veil?" The air froze in a single breath. Margaret hesitated, then spoke, her voice lower. "Evelyn Moore is a respectable woman. She owes you no explanation." Nathan pushed back his chair, the legs scraping against the stone floor. "I do not need this marriage to secure my position. I built everything myself." Richard met his gaze, his eyes cold and unfathomable. "That is exactly why. The Moore family holds things you have not yet seen. That and you will marry Evelyn on the appointed date." Nathan left the dining room, each step heavy. In his bedroom, he poured himself a whiskey and stared out at the dark ocean. Waves crashed against the rocks, steady and indifferent. In his mind, anger tightened into a vow. If this was an arranged marriage, billionaire alliance, he would not allow himself to be the one who lost. Elsewhere in the estate, Margaret stood silently by a window, her hand clenched tight. She knew there were truths her son was not yet allowed to know. A quiet investigation was closing in on Cole Dynamics, a single name that could shift everything, and Evelyn Moore was far more than a veiled bride. At the same time, along the dim coastal road, a black car glided through the darkness. Evelyn sat upright in the back seat, draped in a moss-green coat, her face hidden beneath a veil. Her gray eyes reflected the passing streetlights, sharp and alert. The phone in her hand vibrated softly. A message appeared on the screen. If Nathan Cole fails, Phase 2 will be activated. Evelyn locked the screen, her breathing slow and steady. She was not entering this marriage to be accepted. She was here to take control of a game everyone believed she was too weak to play. The next morning, when the doors of the estate opened and the sound of heels echoed through the hall, Nathan Cole would step into a game whose rules he had never been told. The sound of heels echoed clearly across the marble floor, each step steady, as if the woman entering had no hesitation at all. Nathan turned just as the grand doors of the estate closed behind the veiled woman. Morning light poured through the towering glass panels, casting a soft yet cool glow over her slender figure. She wore a pale cream dress, modest in design with precise, refined tailoring, and a sheer veil draped down to fully conceal her face. Only her gray eyes were visible, sharp and still, like a deep lake without a ripple. Nathan realized he had been standing still for too long. Evelyn Moore stopped a few steps away from him, her back straight, both hands resting lightly in front of her. She did not lower her head, nor did she appear cautious. Those gray eyes met his, calm to the point of irritation. It was not the gaze of someone entering the territory of a powerful man, but of someone accustomed to standing on equal ground. "Nathan," Margaret spoke from behind him, her voice softer than it had been the night before, as if mourning could erase all tension. "This is Evelyn." Evelyn inclined her head just slightly. "It is a pleasure to meet you." Her voice was low and clear, without the slightest tremor. Nathan shook her hand out of reflex, his fingertips brushing against the thin fabric of her glove. Cold. Not the cold of the weather, but a deliberate, carefully maintained chill. He withdrew his hand more quickly than necessary. Likewise. Breakfast was served in a smaller dining room near the glass doors overlooking the sea. Nathan sat across from Evelyn, a long wooden table between them, close enough for him to sense her presence, but not close enough to read the emotions behind the veil. He tried to focus on his coffee, yet his gaze kept drifting back to her hands, neatly placed beside her teacup. Every movement was precise, neither excessive nor lacking. No one spoke for the first few minutes. Nathan broke the silence. "How long do you intend to keep that on your face?" Evelyn lifted her teacup and took a small sip. "As long as necessary." The brief answer drew a quiet, humorless laugh from Nathan. "Necessary for whom? For you, or for this arrangement?" Evelyn set the cup down and looked at him. "For me." Nathan frowned. "Do you know what people are thinking? They think you are hiding something, a flaw, a shameful secret." "Perhaps," Evelyn replied, her tone unchanged. "But those assumptions say more about them than they do about me." The words stopped him for a single breath. He was used to people rushing to explain, justify, or apologize. Evelyn did none of that. She did not defend herself. She remained still, as if every judgment simply slid off the surface. Nathan leaned back in his chair. "What do you consider this marriage to be?" Evelyn was silent for a moment, long enough for Nathan to think he had touched something sensitive. Then she spoke. "An agreement between two families and between two adults who understand their responsibilities." "No love?" Nathan asked, a trace of mockery in his voice. "No illusions," Evelyn corrected. "At least not for now." The honesty unsettled him more than evasion ever could have. He had prepared himself for a woman who would be quiet, compliant, or eager to please. Evelyn was none of those things. After breakfast, Evelyn asked permission to walk through the garden behind the estate. Nathan stood in the second-floor corridor, watching from above. She walked slowly, the cream fabric of her dress brushing the stone path, the veil shifting gently in the sea breeze. The gardeners bowed to her, and he noticed their smiles, not the forced politeness he was used to, but a rare sense of ease. Something did not add up. That afternoon, Nathan received a call from his office. The merger deal with Helix Group had run into trouble again. The confidentiality terms were being challenged by the other side. He sat in the study, documents spread across the desk, his mind stretched taut. The door opened quietly. Evelyn stood there. "I heard you were having an issue," she said. "May I take a look?" Nathan looked up, almost laughing. "This is not a household matter. This is business." Evelyn did not step forward. "I understand, but sometimes the problem is not the numbers, but how they are placed next to each other." Nathan was about to refuse, but then he remembered those gray eyes. Calm, confident, not asking, not pleading. He slid the file toward her. 5 minutes. Evelyn stepped in, standing beside the desk, leaning over the pages. Light fell across the veil, revealing the faint outline of her features beneath, blurred, yet unmistakably shaped by a very slight smile. She pointed to a section, her voice steady. "Here. The wording makes them worry about long-term liability. If you restructure it this way, they will sign." Nathan followed her finger, then looked up. 5 minutes had passed faster than he expected, and for the first time, a sharp, unsettling thought crossed his mind. Perhaps this woman was not standing behind the veil to hide. Perhaps she was standing there to observe everything before making her move. The wedding unfolded like a performance so flawless it felt lifeless. The seaside estate was blanketed in white flowers, the salty air carried by the wind drifting across rows of perfectly aligned chairs. Guests in expensive suits and shimmering evening gowns exchanged polite laughter and voices carefully rehearsed. Nathan stood at the head of the aisle in a navy suit and silver gray shirt. His shoulders were squared, his chin lifted, yet his heartbeat was heavy and slow, as if each beat required permission. When the music rose, the atmosphere tightened. Evelyn appeared at the end of the aisle. Her ivory white wedding dress fit her figure perfectly, its refined lines drawing every gaze to a halt. A sheer veil covered her face, falling softly over her shoulders, concealing every feature. Only her gray eyes were visible, calm to the point of coldness. Whispers spread like ripples across water. She still would not remove it. How long would she keep it on? There had to be a reason. Nathan felt the weight of eyes pressing against his back. He did not turn around. He stared straight ahead, as if looking back would mean admitting he was just as curious as they were. When Evelyn reached his side, he caught a faint, clean scent, restrained and unassuming, a fragrance that did not ask for approval and did not seek to please. The ceremony proceeded smoothly. The vows were spoken in steady voices, not a single word out of place. The ring slid onto her finger, cool against the skin. When the officiant spoke the final words, the space seemed to hold its breath. "You may kiss the bride." Nathan turned to Evelyn. She tilted her head ever so slightly without lifting a hand. The veil remained. In that brief moment, he understood this was not hesitation. It was a choice. He leaned down and placed a short kiss on the thin fabric, polite and distant. Applause followed, perfectly timed, as if arranged in advance. The reception took place in the grand hall, golden light bathing everything in unquestionable luxury. Nathan and Evelyn sat side by side at the main table, an invisible distance separating them. Nathan sipped his wine, his gaze sweeping the crowd. He caught fragments of conversation. "She is so strange. Getting married without showing her face. The Cole family must have their reasons." He glanced at Evelyn. She sat upright, her hands resting lightly on the table, listening to the person beside her with a faint smile hidden behind the veil. There was no sign of unease, no avoidance. She was like a still lake, allowing whispers to fall upon the surface and disappear. By the end of the night, as guests gradually departed, Nathan and Evelyn were led to their private room. The door closed behind them, the lock clicking softly but decisively. The room was spacious, warmly lit, with glass doors opening to the dark sea. Nathan removed his jacket and tossed it onto a chair. He turned back, the tension of the day gathering into a question he could not restrain. "How long will you keep that on?" Evelyn set her handbag on the table and removed her gloves, each movement slow and deliberate. "When I am ready." "Ready for what?" Nathan let out a dry laugh. "To show me what you are hiding." Evelyn turned toward him. Her gray eyes met his directly, without evasion. "I am not hiding anything that matters." "Matters to whom?" Nathan asked, stepping closer. "To you or to me?" Evelyn did not step back. "To me, and to this marriage." The answer stopped him. For a moment, he felt as though he stood before an unlocked door, yet something held him back from reaching out. He turned away, poured himself a drink, and took a long swallow. The burn did nothing to ease the tightness in his chest. "If you think I will wait indefinitely," he said quietly, "you are mistaken." Evelyn did not respond. She sat down in the chair by the window and looked out at the sea. Her silence carried more weight than any argument. For the first time that day, Nathan realized he did not know who he was facing, a veiled bride, or someone who held control over the very rhythm of the room. Outside, waves crashed against the rocks, steady and forceful. And in the pause before the night fully closed, Nathan understood that this wedding was not the end of an imposition. It was only the beginning of a trial he had never prepared for. The days after the wedding passed in a strange rhythm, quiet yet taut with tension. The seaside estate remained flawlessly beautiful, almost indifferent, but within its wide corridors and high ceilings, Nathan felt as though he was living alongside an absence shaped like a person. Evelyn appeared precisely when she was needed and disappeared the moment he thought he was ready to face her. No noise, no demands. Her presence was like a thin, unyielding line that could not be bent. Nathan threw himself into work as a form of escape. The deal with Helix Group still hung in limbo. Cold exchanges of emails, endless calls, and clauses revised until they lost clarity. In the boardroom, executives argued, voices overlapping. Nathan listened, took notes, made swift, sharp decisions, yet something remained off. Everything was technically correct, emotionally wrong. Late in the afternoon, after the meeting room had emptied, Nathan returned to the study. The last light of day poured through the glass, cutting the room into bands of light and shadow. He opened the file, turned each page, trying to find the blockage. The door closed softly behind him. Evelyn stood there. She wore an ash-gray dress, so simple it nearly dissolved into the space, the veil still concealing her face. Nathan looked up, part of him irritated by the interruption, another part inexplicably relieved. "I do not know if you need another opinion," Evelyn said, "but I think the problem is not the confidentiality clause." Nathan exhaled and leaned back in his chair. "Where do you think the problem lies?" "In trust," Evelyn replied. "Helix is afraid of being swallowed. They do not need stronger commitments. They need to see that you are willing to share control." Nathan frowned. Sharing control was the last thing he wanted to hear. Yet as she continued, her voice remained even, not persuasive, not imposing, simply truth laid on the table. "They need a face beside yours, someone who shows this is not a takeover." Nathan studied her for a long moment. For the first time, he did not look at the veil. He looked at how she stood, how she chose her words, how she spoke of power without hesitation. A woman underestimated, a woman who spoke of control as if it were something she had held for a long time. That evening, Nathan found Evelyn in the kitchen, not as a mistress overseeing, but as someone listening. She asked the chef about the dish, praised a small detail, laughed softly behind the veil. The staff around her were so at ease they seemed to forget his presence. When Nathan entered, they paused for a brief moment, then continued, as if Evelyn had created an invisible zone of safety. Something inside him shifted. The next day, Nathan tried her approach. He adjusted his tone, changed his stance in the call with Helix. No pressure, no empty promises, just an invitation. The response came faster than he expected. A face-to-face meeting was arranged. As Nathan stepped out of his office, he saw Evelyn standing in the corridor, the light striking the veil and softening the features behind it. She did not ask. She simply looked at him, waiting. "Thank you," he said, almost without thinking. Evelyn inclined her head slightly. "I only said what you already knew." Night fell. Nathan sat alone on the balcony, staring at the black sea. Moments from the day replayed in his mind. The calm gaze, the steady voice, the quiet respect Evelyn showed to everyone, including him. He realized his initial irritation had shifted into something else, deeper and more dangerous: curiosity. Meanwhile, in another corner of the estate, Evelyn stood by the window, her phone resting on the table. The screen lit up with a single name. She did not touch it. She knew the board was shifting, and she also knew that Nathan Cole had not yet seen the rest of the board. As the lights in Nathan's room went dark, a decision was made elsewhere, without his consent, and the next morning, an unmarked envelope would appear on his desk, containing something capable of shattering every assumption he had ever believed to be true. The ivory envelope lay neatly on Nathan's desk when he stepped into his office that morning. No postmark, no sender's name, just a sharp, precise fold, as if someone had measured exactly the distance between curiosity and fear. Nathan paused for a beat. Beyond the glass walls, the city was waking under pale sunlight, ordinary to the point of mockery. He opened the envelope. Inside was a thin stack of papers, clipped neatly together, and a small black flash drive placed on top. A single handwritten line sat in the corner of the first page. "Read slowly. Do not let emotion get ahead of the truth." He pulled out a chair and sat down. The first page was a summary of an internal investigation that had been suspended. Company names, partner names. The name of a subsidiary Nathan had never heard of. He turned the page, dates that aligned disturbingly well with decisions he himself had signed. A tangled ownership chart. A familiar signature at the bottom of the page. Not his. Nathan's chest tightened. He inserted the flash drive into his computer. The screen lit up. Recovered emails, short audio recordings, calls cut off mid-sentence. Everything was legal on paper. And precisely because of that, it was dangerous. The door opened without warning. Nathan flinched. Evelyn stood in the doorway, wearing a stone blue dress, the veil still concealing her face. Her gray eyes flicked to the screen, then settled on his face. "You have received it," she said. Nathan stood abruptly. "You knew about this." Evelyn stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "I know enough to understand that you are being led down a path that was mapped out long before you noticed." He pointed at the documents. "What is this? Who sent it?" Evelyn was silent for a beat. Then she spoke, her voice low and steady. "It is the reason I agreed to this marriage." Nathan froze. Anger surged fast and sharp. "So you did not come here for me. You came for your own plan." Evelyn met his gaze directly. "I came for the truth, and because you are the only one who can stop it without burning everything down." He let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "You speak as if I owe you something." "No," Evelyn replied. "You owe yourself." The words fell softly, yet with weight. Nathan turned away and ran a hand through his hair. In his mind, the pieces began to align. The arranged marriage, his parents' calm, the things left unsaid. He turned back, his voice low. "Then what about the veil? Is that part of the plan too?" Evelyn did not avoid the question. "Not entirely. I needed time for you to see me as an ally, not an image. If you had seen my face from the beginning, you would have decided too quickly, and you would have decided wrong." Nathan stepped closer. For the first time, only a single breath separated them. "You are saying I am shallow. I am saying you are human," Evelyn answered. "And humans are often distracted by what is easiest to see." He looked into her gray eyes, searching for a crack. There was none, only carefully contained fatigue and something else, cold and unwavering. In that moment, Nathan grasped the plot twist he did not want to admit. This underestimated woman was not standing on the sidelines. She stood at the center, where lines of power converged. His voice dropped. "And if I refuse to cooperate?" Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke slowly. "Then phase 2 begins, and at that point you will no longer control the pace." "What is phase 2? Evelyn turned and walked toward the door. She stopped without looking back. "It is when I stop protecting you from the names in that file." The door closed. Nathan stood alone as the room seemed to shrink around him. He looked back at the screen, at the cold lines of text. A choice emerged, brutally clear. Trust Evelyn and step onto the board with her, or refuse, and let the game consume everything he had built. Outside, the elevator bell chimed. Nathan clenched the documents in his hand. In his mind, a decision was forming, not yet spoken aloud. And somewhere in the building, a call was being connected, waiting for the moment he chose wrong to begin. The call from Helix came sooner than Nathan expected. Not an email, not through an intermediary. It was the voice of the chairman on the other end of the line, low and direct, requesting a private, in-person meeting. No lawyers, no board members. Nathan ended the call and stood motionless in his office for a long time. On the desk, the file still lay there, like a living organism, waiting to be fed or burned. He did not call his father. He did not call his mother. For the first time, Nathan turned toward the room at the end of the corridor. The door was slightly ajar. Light from inside spilled out in a thin, golden line. Evelyn was sitting by the window, wearing a smoky blue dress, no veil, not removed, simply placed neatly on the table, like an object not needed in this moment. When she heard his footsteps, she turned. Her gray eyes showed no surprise, only expectation. "Helix wants to meet me privately," Nathan said. "No pretense, no avoidance." Evelyn nodded. "That means they have started to feel afraid." He looked at her for a beat. "You knew this would happen." "I knew the probability was higher than 50%, Evelyn replied. "When one side believes they are about to lose control, they seek direct contact with the person at the top. Not to negotiate, to probe." Nathan stepped closer, resting his hands on the table. "So what do I do?" Evelyn did not answer immediately. She stood, walked to the glass board behind him where Nathan usually sketched strategy. She picked up a marker and wrote quickly, without hesitation. Arrows, intersections. A power structure Nathan had never mapped that way. "You do not go there to win," Evelyn said. "You go there to show them you are willing to share power, but never surrender core control. You give them a seat, but keep the key." Nathan studied the diagram. Part of him resisted. Another part recognized its frightening accuracy. She was speaking like someone who had once sat on the other side of the negotiation table. "Where did you learn this?" he asked. Evelyn set the marker down. "In a place where I was not allowed to be wrong. Not even once." The air between them shifted. No longer confrontation, no longer suspicion. It was the focus of two people facing the same threat. Nathan nodded. All right, I will do it. The meeting took place in a small, windowless conference room. Nathan sat across from the Helix representative, his tone calm, every word placed like a calculated move. He did not push. He did not promise. He let the other side speak, then reflected their fears back to them in their own language. When the meeting ended, the final handshake was no longer tense. That evening, Nathan returned to the estate late. He found Evelyn in the study, reading documents under soft light. She looked up when he entered. She did not ask. She did not need to. They agreed, Nathan said. A new arrangement, exactly as you predicted. Evelyn nodded slightly. Good. He stood there, looking at her. For the first time, he was not thinking about the veil. He was thinking about how the distance between them had narrowed without him noticing. She had not just helped him survive a deal. She had helped him see the true structure of the world he believed he controlled. Nathan lowered his voice. If I ask whose side you were on from the beginning. Evelyn closed the file. I am on the side of the truth, and right now, the truth is that we need each other. The words carried no emotion, yet they tightened his chest. In that moment, Nathan understood that this marriage had crossed the boundary of a transaction. It was becoming a real alliance. Elsewhere in the estate, Richard Cole stood by a window, watching the headlights of Nathan's car fade. He closed his eyes briefly. The moves on the board were beginning to drift from his original calculations, and he knew the one adjusting the board now was not his son. It was Evelyn. As night fell, Nathan stood on the balcony, the sea wind strong against him. Behind him, Evelyn stepped out and stood beside him, not touching. The distance was small but solid. Nathan did not turn. He spoke, his voice low and steady. I think it is time I knew your whole story. Evelyn looked out at the black sea where waves struck the rocks without pause. When I tell you, she said, you will not be able to go back to who you were. Nathan nodded. I do not want to go back. Evelyn drew in a slow breath, and deep within the night, a secret was about to be revealed, one capable of changing not only this marriage, but the name Cole that Nathan had once believed untouchable. The grand hall of the Cole estate glowed during the gala night, chandeliers pouring light down the towering glass walls like silent stardust. Music swelled just enough, laughter drifting across the marble floor. Nathan stood near the stage in a charcoal suit and deep blue tie, his expression composed though his shoulders held a faint tension. He was used to evenings like this, where power was measured by glances and handshakes. Only one thing was different tonight. Evelyn had not yet appeared. Whispers threaded through the room. Where is she? Will the veiled wife attend? Nathan offered no response. He looked toward the grand staircase where the light gathered into a waiting path. In his chest, a strange pulse formed, not fear, but a clear awareness that this moment would seal something irreversible. The music softened. Footsteps sounded, steady and sure. Evelyn appeared at the top of the stairs. An emerald green evening gown traced her figure, the cut refined and restrained, and her face was revealed. No veil, no concealment. Light touched her luminous skin, her features sharp, her gray eyes deep and calm. The hall held its breath for a beat. Then whispers broke out. Surprise, confusion, admiration. Nathan did not move. He watched her descend step by step, composed as if she had walked this path her entire life. When she reached him, Evelyn stopped. Their eyes met. No explanation was needed. She turned to the crowd. Evelyn's voice carried clearly, warm and steady, filling the space. I know there have been many questions about why I once covered my face. Some thought it was fear. Some believed it was shame. I covered my face because I wanted to be judged first by what I do, not by how I look. A pause. She continued, her tone deeper. We are far too accustomed to judging people by what is easiest to see. I wanted to know whether I could build a relationship based on respect, intellect, and choice before appearances shaped everything. And now I have my answer. Evelyn turned to Nathan, her gaze softening. I removed the veil tonight because the time has come, not to shock anyone, but to close a journey. Nathan stepped forward half a pace. He did not touch her. He spoke, his voice low and steady. I have learned that true power does not come from controlling everything, but from choosing the right person to stand beside. I am proud that person is you. Applause rose, scattered at first, then swelling into a wave. The looks around them changed. No cheap curiosity, no doubt, only recognition. Later that night, as the hall grew quiet, Nathan and Evelyn stood on the balcony. The sea breeze was cool, the sky wide above them. Nathan turned to her. "Are you ready for everything to move forward on our terms?" Evelyn smiled, a smile that needed no veil. "We started long ago." They stood there without further words. Behind them, an empire was reshaping itself. Ahead lay a path that promised nothing easy, but everything real. If this story made you rethink how we see others, leave a comment and share how it made you feel. If you found this journey meaningful, tap like to show your support. And do not forget to subscribe to Untold Journey Stories to continue exploring stories that touch the heart, where every choice has the power to change a destiny.